my name is Breland Fiddler, and I did Skadi for my Norse mythology project. So, who is Skadi? Well, Skadi is the goddess of the wilderness who hunts and skis through the mountains. She is associated with bow hunting, skiing, winter, and mountains. She is the daughter of Thysi. Thysi, her father, is a giant who is the god of winter. He is a shapeshifter also. Thysi was slayed by the gods, unfortunately, so he is dead. He was lit on fire when he was flying to retrieve a dun, who was his guardian goddess. They killed him once he hit the ground. Skadi is also married, in quotations, to Nord. Nord, her husband, is someone who we're going to get to in a little bit. Skadi originally thought that Nord was Baldur, the god of light, and mistakenly married him. Both couldn't stand each other and their differences and eventually separated. Skadi is also a giant. Giants were mainly forces of darkness, cold, and death, and since Skadi is related to winter, which is cold, we can conclude that Skadi fits into this category. Skadi is also married to Odin. She is officially married to Odin. Skadi later on married Odin, who we will also get to in a bit, and gave him many children, one being Samir, the king of Norway. Who is related to Skadi? Well, one of them is Norn. He is the god of winds in the sea, the patron of sailors and fishermen, and he brought wealth to people who deserved it. He's one of the more popular gods, and he's popular being this because people who worshipped him hoped that they would receive bounty from the seas in return, and this mostly applies to seafarers. He also lived by the sea. Some say that Nord lived by the sea, but it isn't really clear where he lived. Some say that he also lived above the sea in Nortun, which is the place of boats. Nord is married to Skadi, like we talked about before. Nord and Skadi were unhappily married, like I stated earlier, and it didn't last very long, mainly due to Skadi choosing the wrong god in the different environments they lived in. Nord also had children with his sister. Well, after Skadi left, his children are Freyr and Freyja. The second one, being related to Skadi, is Odin. Odin is the god of war and death. Half of the warriors who die in battle are actually taken to him since he's the god of war and death. Odin is also married to Skadi. Both of them had many children, like I said, Samir, who later on went to rule Norway and the kingdom. Odin also has many pets and animals who help him. So those animals help him do his job. For example, he has 2 ravens, Hun and Munin, who fly all around the world and report back to Odin about what they saw. One special thing about Odin is the golden ring, the Draupnir. Draupnir is favored by all of the gods. This golden ring has the ability to multiply itself, making an exact replica, and all the Aesir gods were absolutely fascinated by this. And last thing is Odin sacrificed himself. So Odin has all of his animals to look around the whole world, but he wants to see everything for himself and gain knowledge about things that are being hidden from him. This led to him to sacrifice himself, him giving up his eye and then committing suicide basically by putting himself on his spear. He later hanged himself on the Tree of Life to know more about what's going on in other parts of the world and understand more. He learned how to cure the sick, calm storms, turn weapons against the people who attack him, make people fall in love with him, mainly women, etc. So why is Skadi important to Norse mythology? I believe Skadi was underestimated in my opinion, and her run-in with the gods had a large effect on how some of the stories are told in Norse mythology. So I feel like Skadi is a misjudged goddess, especially by the gods, and I feel like she definitely affects how Norse mythology ended up being told today. Skadi's status as a goddess, along with the people who worshipped her as a goddess, can say a lot about her. Skadi wasn't a bad goddess and a giant by the ancient Norse people. Some suggest that she was appreciated for her connection with the power with winter. After her father was killed, Skadi sought revenge for him and went off to assault the Aesir gods. I believe the gods didn't know what they were getting themselves into, but I think they handled the situation well. Skadi arrived to Aesir, and the gods didn't think she'd show up to kill them or give them a piece of their mind. They started to offer her things like money, and Skadi said that she already had enough. They were just wasting her time. They then gave her a chance to pick an Aesir god to make amends, and they promised her that they'd get her the laugh. The marriage ended up with her and Nord being unhappy and separated, but Loki got a laugh out of Skadi, which he thought would be impossible, and this led to the relationship form between the two. What do the relatives of Skadi have to do with the Norse mythology? Well, Nord led his tribe against the Aesir gods during the Aesir-Vanir War. Nord was particularly an important figure, especially for the role he played in this. The war resulted in the Aesir and Vanir becoming one with each other. In the aftermath of the war, though, Nord was exchanged for Honir, an Aesir god, which the two were held hostage by enemies once they had to prevent conflict from occurring in the future. Eventually, both Nord and his children were finally accepted and admired by the Aesir gods. The friendship changed Norse mythology and laid a foundation for peace. So the next one is Odin. Odin is one of the most important gods that had some of the best abilities which were important to Norse history. Odin was considered to be very important to Norse history according to the special task or role that was given to him. Odin's task, or so-called role, was to gift the people who arrived first with spirit and life. Odin basically created the Norse universe and changed everything around. He was then known as the giver of life. Since he was so great at this point, he became one of the gods and was worshipped everywhere. So, a symbolic representation of Skadi. So, like seen in this picture, the symbolic representation of Skadi includes some of her most mentionable attributes. These are her snowshoes, bow, and skis, which are pictured here. These give her the ability to hunt and engage in battle greatly. Is there any associated flora or fauna? Although Skadi isn't associated with the flora, she is associated with the fauna. Skadi is associated with wolves. She has one wolf named Calder. An interesting fact about Calder's name is that it means cold in Old Norse. Story time! So some say that after Skadi's father was killed, she was furious and immediately wanted to avenge his death. So she went out to the Aesir gods and basically gave them a choice of, do you want to get seriously hurt or do you want me to be gentle with your punishment? Which wasn't really a big choice. The gods were terrified of her and decided to give her as much gold as she wanted. But like I said, she refused. Now knowing this, Odin offered her a husband from the Aesir gods, which would make her a goddess. Skadi agreed to this, but the only condition to this was that Skadi had to choose by only looking at the god's feet. Hoping that she'd choose Balder, she chose Nord, due to him having the best feet. Here are my sources, and thank you for listening to this presentation.